So anyways, as I was saying, my name is KathrynShantiAriel, and I've lived in Shasta for years. My main focus in life has always been nature and the nature kingdoms, because I've always had the ability to hear them, to speak to them, to understand how the quantum field of nature exists and how we can commune with them. I've always remembered that beyond the verbal language, the quiet language has always existed and tied us, woven us together. And so, although in a lot of situations in humanity, because of the great focus on verbal language, so much of the silent language, the telepathy, the language that comes in on the love rays was ignored and pushed aside, and we have, as a race, decided that nobody can talk and communicate except us. And so part of my work is to help remind people that in the unity weave, in the interconnectedness of life, everybody can communicate, because there is a deep communication beyond language. Yes?
This be a skill that you learned or you were born with?
Well, you know, I think interspecies communication to me is something we are all innately capable of doing. I think we are all born with it, and what happens is we get trained to not use it because of the great influence on the verb, on speaking out loud. So we don't stay in that place of connecting telepathically, connecting with the heart, connecting by listening in these different ways, not only with animals, but with the plants. You know, you talk to a lot of shamans, and shamans keyed out, you know, they didn't have a botanical guide back in the day. They figured out what these plants did and who they were because the plants spoke to them somehow. Part of that is through the signatures, and the doctrine of signatures, where plants display different colors or shapes or things that indicate to you what they're for. But beyond that, there is a voice that we can all hear when we are reconnected and start listening. Anybody can do it at any point in time, as far as I'm concerned. We just have to know that we can, and take the time to learn to listen differently. And I think one of the biggest things about interspecies communication, and a lot of people, when you think interspecies, you're just thinking about animals. But this is about all the kingdoms, the plant kingdoms, the crystalline kingdoms, the elemental realms, everything. They all are part of the interspecies, interdimensional conversation. And my big impetus on helping people do this now is because we have before us an enormous challenge to return the earth to harmony, because we are so out of balance right now. And one of the ways that we will succeed in bringing everything back to harmony is by learning how to communicate with everything. And when we are making decisions about what to do anywhere, building things, whatever, we talk to all of the kingdoms and have this be a community conversation. It has to be something like on Finhorn over in Scotland. They did that. And there are different, and the indigenous people certainly do that. And it's part of our journey to start including all of the kingdoms in the conversation. If we're building a house or building a school, or if we're going in to create a garden, no matter what we're doing, we need to talk to the kingdoms that are already there, that are here to work with us and participate in the co-creation. And this was, I don't know if you guys ever saw this book. This is part of the Anastasia series, The Ringing Cedars. And this is the 4th book, which is on co-creation. And it talks all about, in one of the chapters in here, talks about the people that are the singers, I think they call them, where they sang the blueprints into manifestation. And what this brings to understanding for people is everything if you really understand that there's a divine plan, and there really is a journey that we are on, even though in a lot of cases down here as individuals, we can't see it. We don't really get it. We're just kind of moving around like pieces of a puzzle down here. But there is a divine plan being orchestrated. And the co-creation in here, what they talked about were these people that actually sang the blueprints down into the dimension where they could manifest. So, and that's, a lot of people are doing that too with hi, welcome. Come. With different kinds of, from indigenous songs to drumming to flutes, you know, all of these things are part of the conversation with nature to say we are here, we are listening, and we want to participate with you as friends. And so I think the biggest thing for people to understand in learning interspecies communication, or rather remembering, is that you can, everybody can do it. You just have to drop into your heart. It's about dropping into your heart. Most of the people, when I've taught this in the past, they're trying to figure out how to do it in their heads. And it is not a mental participation at all. You have to drop into your heart, and you have to learn to listen differently. And the best comparison I can do for this is that all the different beings on the planet talk on different frequency bands, like different radio bands. So like if you're dialing on a radio and you're looking for a particular station and it clicks in, that's what you have to do when you're out in nature and you're deciding you want to speak to someone or something out there, whether it's the water, the stones, the trees. You have to find the frequency band that they are speaking, humming from. And once you can do that, then you can start to hear it, to feel it, to see it. A lot of nature communicates, especially the animals, communicate through visual packages, what we call visual packages. And there was a wonderful video out on YouTube last year or 2 years ago about an animal communicator out of Africa, and she did a piece with a black panther. Do you guys remember seeing that? Do you remember seeing that? I do. Tamar? Yeah. And did you get to see the whole video? Because she's an amazing communicator, this woman. And but at part of the video, at the end, she was working and walking with tribal people that were hunters and trackers. And the conversation came in that people, in their view, people develop the ability to communicate with animals from their need to hunt them down. Now, at that point, they lost me in that video, because I know that we all can do this. It has nothing to do with hunting and killing anybody. It has to do with the innate ability to go beyond language and speak mind to mind, soul to soul, consciousness to consciousness. And
excuse me,
sure.
You don't want me to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I do remember some time ago learning about a woman who found lost animals, and the way that she found them was by tuning into what they saw.
Nice. Yes. Yeah, and it's so very true. It's the animal, especially, now I read an article about wolves years ago that was actually done by biologists. And what they found was that they tracked a pack in Wyoming or something, that the wolves could find each other 5 miles apart because they were communicating with each other telepathically. So the communication can go over large distances. And this is something we're all beginning to know and understand. You know, as people are waking up and they're getting telepathic, you read stories about people coming, knowing that something's going to happen, and then the phone rings and then you hear about it. That's all part of that whole thing going on with them awakening to their telepathic awareness. And it's called a lot of different things. People call it ESP, they can call it, it doesn't really matter what you label it. It's the awareness that you can connect without voice and without presence. You don't have to be looking at somebody visually. You could be talking to somebody way across the planet, just linking up on the Ethernet, as I call it. And it's above these things. And at some point in time in the human evolution, sooner rather than later, I hope, these will no longer be necessary because we will be connecting mind to mind. And you just won't need to be calling people on a man-made piece of equipment. You know, we'll just be connecting in. This is what the animal kingdoms already do. This is what the nature kingdoms all do. They're not calling each other on cell phones. You know, they're all connected. They're all hearing each other. And some of the instances, too, in emergencies. Now, I wrote this book about emergency care and trauma recovery. And it's a holistic base. And I talk a lot about, in this book, about the animals' roles in as teachers and how to communicate with them, but also about their ability to hear what's going on because they are linked into the grid. They are linked into the grid. And so when there's something coming up, an earthquake, a tornado, a flood, any of these things, animals hear that stuff coming and they, adios. They go, and you've seen that in movies over and over again, and in that flood that was over, I wrote it in the book.
The tsunami in Thailand.
The tsunami in Thailand, not one animal died. They were out of there. You know, they heard that thing coming way before it hit shore, and they all left.
High ground, went for high ground.
They went for high ground, absolutely. And you see the animals do that. So one of the advantages, too, I mean, there's so many advantages of learning to be connecting and talking interspecies. But they can tell us when things are out of balance. And they will. And they'll let you know, yo, we have problems coming. You guys need to do something quick. Get in your car and adios out. Or do a lot of calls to the divine and ask for assistance to even things out. There are a lot of different things that you can do once you are in communication with nature this way. You can connect in every morning when you get up and ask what you can do to help. And it's just this whole different level of talking and communicating. And simple things as well, such as working when you're going to plant your garden. Years ago in San Diego, before I came up here, I had a plantscaping business. And I would go into these big greenhouses with these big shopping lists of the different plants that I needed to get for hospitals or wherever I was doing an installation. And I would go in and literally talk to the plants. I'd say, I'd show them a picture of the building. And I would say, who wants to come? And I would listen for the plants and the elementals of the plants to say to me, I'll go, I'll go, I'll go. And I would go, and those were the plants that I would take. Yes.
Not to interrupt, but you're talking about interior plantscaping?
Yes.
Just potted plants?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In this particular case, you know, where they have a confined living. So,
They do, but I actually studied it on the college level, and you have a list of those that will acclimate to a lower light level and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep. Yeah, it's really fun. There are all, and most of them are from the rainforest. You know,
right, they're from tropical and they're
all
understory, and some of them will acclimate to lower light levels,
Absolutely.
or they're prone to be.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's some instances where we could put a ficus in or something really high, but most of them were these really low plants, and you had to understand that they never got to feel much dirt, you know, so they were in this great service to be in these buildings with people.
To provide
Oxygen and
to provide visual enjoyment for
Well, that's
people,
true.
a break from the office looking at sheetrock or the computer screen, to reconnect with flora, fauna, or however you want to say it.
absolutely, to bring nature in to where people couldn't reach it themselves. And it was so interesting to how the plants would respond when I was asking them who wants to come. And again, I did it telepathically. And this kind of thing can be done with humane societies, rescue centers. So much of what goes on in these places is people go in and go, I want that animal. Nobody is saying to the animal, how do you feel about this? Are these people okay with you? Did you come in to walk with these people? Because animals, everybody is on a journey, just like we are. They come in to connect with certain people or have certain activities going on so that they can grow and move forward on their journeys. And oftentimes, the spirits will come in and work with people that they have known in other lifetimes, or they have a specific mission to accomplish. And if they end up in a humane society or one of these other places, they don't have a way to really make sure that happens. You know, it's taken out of their hands a little bit.
Mine did.
Yeah? Yes?
Yes, if you don't mind mine.
No.
I recently, I needed a cat. My cat died in November 8th. I didn't want to get another one. I came over from the place. Oh! I hated saying, okay, they always come, bring me a cat, and they didn't come. So finally, I decided to break my rule and go down to the Humane Society. So I said to Spirit the night before, if there's a cat down there that needs to come home with me, please make it really clear because you know I can be dense. So I went, there weren't a whole lot of cats, nothing was talking to me, there was an adorable little black cat, but finally I thought, well, I'll take that one. So they went out to do the paperwork, and I stayed in the cab room, and this big 15-pound black cat with a broken tail came up and started rubbing against me. So I petted him, he rolled over, pet my belly, I said, oh. Okay, so we spent a little time together. I started to go out. He followed me and came up on the gate, and I said, change the paperwork. That's the one. He's chosen. And
Yes.
it's very clear to me that that cat was meant to come home.
Yeah.
And I took him home. I put him down. He wandered through the house just like he was checking to see if everything was just the way he left it.
Yeah. Well, and it's absolutely true. And this is what can happen when the people that come in are conscious enough, awake enough to be paying attention to these things. And I also have a similar story that with one of my dogs years ago, she was a Rhodesian Ridgeback mix. And I had another Rhodesian Ridgeback German Shepherd mix named Isis, and a German Short-haired Pointer named Spencer. And we were out walking one day, and Spencer got bloat. And any of you that know what bloat is, it's a horrific way to die. What happens is the animal's stomach flips and twists and gets stuck.
The intestine and stomach get
Yeah.
tied in a knot.
They get tied in a knot, and their whole belly just swells up from the gas. So we were about a mile from our car, and fortunately there were some people there who assisted me in getting Spencer, who weighed 90 pounds, over to the car. But by the time I got him to the vet, all the vet could do was scream at me that we had to put him down because he was in so much pain. So 1 minute Spencer was alive, and the next minute he was gone. And I didn't really understand this because he was a really healthy dog. But 3 days later, I was in my backyard, and I heard, go to the Humane Society. And I was like, I'm still grieving. And they were like, right now. This was like one of those spiritual commands that they got my attention. So I got in the car, and I took Isis with me, and I went to the Humane Society. And I thought, well, Isis is a girl, I should get another boy dog. So I started looking at the male dogs, and nothing. And then I went down the female aisle, and all the dogs were jumping on the screens and saying, take me, take me. But I walked by this one, and she was just sitting calm with her head bowed. And when I walked by her, she purred like a cat. And I was like, oh, that was very interesting. So I went back and I looked at her again, and I stuck my hand in, and she literally purred like a cat, like a big cat. And so I went, okay, obviously we have a connection. And so I went out. This shelter at that time was still a kill shelter, and she was on death row. So Spencer had left so that I could get Shasta, who I had known in another life and had come back in to finish the business. So that whole thing, because I was able to listen and because I was able to understand that animals come and go and make way for each other as well, I was able to listen and get past my grief of whatever that was so that I could take Shasta home with me, who walked with me for years. And so these kinds of things with the interspecies thing are just a little tiny piece of what goes on when you can learn to listen. I'm going to back up a little bit to talking about the visual packages. One of the main things that is really important for people to understand is the visual packages and how nature uses those. And a lot of people that are animal communicators, they will write up words. You know, they're not going to draw you a picture of a visual. They get the visual, or they get through a filter system that they have, the visual gets translated and the communicator gets words. But it's really important to understand that the visual is what comes. This is how animals communicate one to another. It is one of the primary ways that they communicate. Now, Ishtene, when she came to me, she was about 2 years old. And she was kind of in trouble when I got her, and I stepped in and made sure she was okay. And she ended up staying with us. And I had another dog, Spirit Hawk, who was also walking with us. Let me see if I can find his.
Is that him on the picture at your feet?
It's the one. It's on the chair here. This is Spirit Hawk in his younger years. He was a wolf dog as well, and he was 130 pounds. And people in Mount Shasta called him a man of peace, grandfather. He had quite a reputation in town. But when Ishtene came, she said to me, "Whatever you say, better match what's in your head, because I can tell the difference." She was like right there with me, sassy little thing. And she's a very fiery individual, some of you know her, and she has walked with me now for 9.5 years and has been through a tremendous amount. But she's a wolf dog. This is her first lifetime walking with people. All of her other lives have been as a wild wolf. So I had to go through an adjustment with her, deciding if she was going to put up with the crap that humans were dishing out day in and day out, because she didn't have any patience for it. She just thought these people are just a mess, you know, and so she would scold people a lot and let people know that they needed to stay away from her, because she didn't want to talk to them unless they were like in their peace point. If they had anything going on, she'd just tell her. She'd bark at them and tell them to kind of get back in their center. But she's a marvelous bridge, and the wolf dogs, all the wolf dogs have come in to the earth right now, just like a lot of the feral cats. They're creating a bridge between the wild families and the domestic families, because the domestic dogs have been inbred to such an excess that they have lost their sense of who they are, both on a DNA level and their basic wild knowingness, just like people have. You know, people have forgotten that they have telepathic capabilities. They have forgotten that their roots came as a co-creative essence with nature, that we were birthed into nature as part of this big family. Everybody cooperated with each other. We all walked together in harmony. When we chose to go into separation a very long time ago as some kind of cosmic experiment, we didn't realize at the time that we were going to drag the entire planet down with us. And it was at that time that it didn't happen overnight, but we lost our ability to communicate on these higher levels. We brought the food chain into existence, because before that, everybody lived off of plants and light, including the animal kingdoms. So we dropped down and created duality and created the food chain and created war and all of these. And any of you, if you've studied this stuff, you know it's not that simple. There was a lot of complication in there, but all of this was part of our choice to see if we could separate from the divine and find our way home. So it's been a very long journey. Took us a long time, much longer than we thought it was going to, but, you know, we're making a lot of headway. As part of that, the skill set of interspecies work is again very critical, because the animal kingdoms and the plant kingdoms, as the earth is starting to ascend, as humanity is beginning to awaken, it is our responsibility to help them rise with us and to help them return to unity with us. So we have to learn to hear them and to hear their cries and to hear their decisions. What are they asking? What do they need from us? As a race, as we are saying we are ascending, they're saying, hey, you dragged us down here. You have to help us up the ladder too. And there are many, many pieces, many steps to this process. But one of the first ones is to learn how to hear them and to learn how to speak and just get into